449 for amendment number 1. Ms. Miller is recognized to explain amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Real ID Act. We passed a resolution back in May, on May the 9th, that was a very similar type piece of legislation. Representative Davenport, I believe it was your resolution, for South Carolina not to participate in the Real ID Act that has been to memorialize Congress to repeal or decline the implementation of the Real ID Act. What this bill does, this is an actual bill, and we do need this bill to go to Washington so that we can send a message to our congressional delegation that South Carolina is not going to participate in the Real ID Act. The first amendment, is this the amendment that's on the table? Which was the amendment that simply stated the state shall not participate in the implementation of the federal Real ID Act.
Are the questions the adoption of amendment number 1?
Right. The committee amendment that we have includes the Aeronautics Commission bill, which was passed by the House Education and Public Works Committee.
Ms. Miller, just a moment. We have amendment number 1 before us. The number you're talking about. It's incorporated in number 1. I apologize. Go ahead, Ms. Miller.
The Aeronautics Commission bill, which was passed by the House Education and Public Works Committee and also was passed by this body, was sent to the Senate. This amendment is germane to the bill, and we attached it back to this piece of legislation in the full committee. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Young is recognized for the question.
Ms. Miller, would you tell me why somebody would be against the aeronautics piece back on this bill? I've just gotten a couple of no's, and I can't get a real good feel of why they would be objective since the House has passed both of them. Are they concerned that the Real ID won't pass the Senate if that's the aeronautics on there?
Ms. Young, I feel like that is the concern, that some folks wanted to send a clean Real ID bill act to the Senate. We have been in communication with the Senate. One senator was holding up this bill that passed by landslide majority by this body, and we had one senator that was holding that up. And I know that there has been communication with that senator and as well as other senators regarding moving that bill forward in the Senate.
The aeronautics?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, are you concerned that putting this amendment on is going to hold the Real ID Act up? Are you concerned about that?
I would certainly hope not. I hope that giving this aeronautics bill back to the Senate would not be a detriment to the Real ID Act. That would be my
Your personal
opinion on that.
Because this is real important when we send this message.
Absolutely.
The lines of DMV, we get something like this passes, and the infrastructure that we're going to have to put in place, if this thing goes through, we push through it, it's a nightmare, don't you agree?
Absolutely, and the cost is phenomenal. I think it's $68 million to implement the first year under the current guidelines.
Lines again.
Unreal.
Again, that's why I think it's so important. I'm going to go with your guidance. If you believe that this is not going to hurt the Real ID, I'm fine with that. But I've gotten several notices saying they were concerned about that.
Thank you, and I appreciate that.
Mr. Bedfield, what purpose do you rise?
Mr. Speaker, I move to divide the question on the bill so that we can separate.
You know the amendment.
On the amendment, so that we can separate out the committee amendment and the Aeronautics Commission, sir.
Mr. Bedfield, Ms. Miller is still open the floor. As soon as she steps away from the podium, I'll recognize her. you had a couple of questions before the answer to this, brother. You want to address the question first? Mr. Benfield, you hold that for just a moment. Actually, Mr. Goodman is recognized for a question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Ms. Miller, I just want to follow up on the line of questioning started by Ms. Berkeley. But we do agree that, of course, that the Real ID does have grave ramifications here in South Carolina if we do not try to address this in terms of what the federal government requires us to do.
Absolutely, and we do have a deadline that is coming up, and certainly we want to get something in place before we reach this deadline.
So then, in essence, you would agree time is of the essence.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
This Real ID bill through.
Without a doubt.
Would you not also agree then that even though we would hope by this amendment that has been attached to this bill under 9.3 that it does have the potential in terms of jeopardizing us meeting that deadline in terms of Real ID across the hall?
Mr. Goodman, of course,
considering the Senate rules?
Of course, as you know, under 9.3, the House rules, we can attach a bill that has already passed the subcommittee in the House. So this aeronautics attachment is certainly well within our guidelines. What we would hope that is that we would have the senators come to an agreement, but once this reaches the Senate, but in the meantime, the context of the Real ID Act is what we're primarily after right now, and this aeronautics amendment should not affect the language in there whatsoever. The language in there, we have strengthened the Real ID Act, and we do not think that this would have any effect on the message that we're sending on that.
But Ms. Miller, you would agree this is really, and would you not agree with the fact that during the committee debate when we discussed this, that some of us had concerns about the very practice and nature of what we're trying to do here in terms of attaching this bill?
I understand, and certainly I think all of us are under 9.3, or we have the opportunity to do that at some point in time, and our members were exercising a rule that this body voted on to put the aeronautics bill on, to attach it to the Senate bill 449. In the meantime, we also have the issue with the Real ID. Now we hope that I hope today we can send this over to the Senate, and certainly I think that you'll have an opportunity today to either vote this bill up or down, or I think there's some amendments on the table too that may address your concerns.
And is there anything else that we could do in terms of attaching to other than this Real ID bill?
At the time this aeronautics bill or the Real ID Act came up, there were no other bills that were germane to the aeronautics bill that could be used as an attachment.
And my final question is, would you agree that of course no one is opposed to the aeronautics bill in terms of what's being attempted there in terms of the amendment? The real concern is in terms of the ramifications or potential impact of the
Real ID Act, and I certainly hope that this will not interfere in the holding up this bill, because the Real ID Act is, in my opinion, of utmost importance to this state.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Mr. Benfield is recognized.